What is going on, you guys? So today I have another quick episode for you. So today we're going to be going over a video called Dating Expert. Yes, he's wasting your time. Big signs that he is not serious and using you. So this is from Lisa Bilyeu. This is Tom Bilyeu's wife from Impact Theory, another great podcast. And this is going to be definitely very interesting coming from a guy's perspective watching this, and a guy giving advice towards a woman. So let's hop into it.
You mentioned earlier, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but it was so powerful, and I bet you everyone at home is like, thank you, Lisa, for asking this question. What's the difference between connection and chemistry? Because you said people may think it's connection, but it could be chemistry.
Yes.
In fact, you talk about the 3 C's. Let's go back to that. Chemistry, compatibility, and connection.
Okay.
Can you break those 3 down and let us know which ones, are they necessary, or all 3 necessary, or only one necessary?
Okay, so let's start with compatibility. Compatibility to me is more of a logical approach to, do these 2 people fit together? So it's like, oh, okay, they come from the same background, they like the same things. It's basically on paper, they are compatible, which is why if you go to a dating site, they can match people based off of compatibility. But the reality is that it doesn't always actually work out, all right? Because compatibility is just one layer of it. And I'll be honest with you, it is the least needed layer, all right? Because again, compatibility is also based off of what we've been taught, social constructs of what should fit together. Meaning, if you had, think about if you're in a society that has a class system and you come from the upper class and you meet someone from the lower class. Well, society tells you, you 2 are not compatible. You don't belong together. You're from different classes. But you 2 may experience the most amazing connection ever. And because you're caught up in compatibility and what society says, you will pass on that person. I actually had a woman who, she was dating a guy. I don't remember what her job was, but I know she was high earning woman, very successful. She met a man. I want to say he was a garbage man. I'm not 100% sure, but I know his job was not prestigious, all right? He wasn't broke, but nowhere near making her kind of money. They had an amazing connection, but she said her family would always say, he's not good enough for you. You should not be with this guy. He basically pursued her for 8 months. After 8 months, he finally gave up. After he gave up, she was mad and now saying, oh, he was never serious because he gave up. And I'm like, wait a minute, you made this man.
The poor guy,
try
8
for
months?
exactly 8 months. You have your whole family saying he's not good enough. What do you want this man to do? And at no point did you fully embrace being with him.
Yeah, and let's face it, if it was the other way around, and I had a friend.
By the way, I'm not sure, it might be worth looking up. I'm not sure how much a garbage man makes, but I'm pretty sure a garbage man makes, let's say, decent money, right? Like, maybe not like the best money, but pretty decent money. Because, I mean, most people aren't willing to do that kind of job, right? Handling trash, waking up super early all the time, right? Like, you know, it's a job that not a lot of people are willing to do. And so I think it makes decent money. And so, yeah, it's not the most prestigious thing, right? He's not a doctor or a lawyer or doing whatever she's doing, right? But that's actually something that people mistake a lot. I know a garbage man isn't like a trade, for example, but oftentimes like plumbers, right? Like plumbers or certain people that work in maybe different kinds of HVAC or things like being like an elevator mechanic. Like if you have like a trade, oftentimes like the easiest example is a plumber, right? Because it's like, again, that's not a glorious, prestigious looking job, but oftentimes he makes more than the doctor or lawyer. So it's kind of interesting, right? Because it's just like you're going off appearances rather than what people actually know about the job and how much it makes. And maybe that's for the best, right? Because maybe the plumbers can vet for a better wife because of that anyways.
Was a woman that was chasing a guy for 8 months, I'd be like, homie, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Like, so but it's funny how it's sometimes when it's reversed, it doesn't feel like that.
You know, exactly.
And that's a good point too. Probably not, I would say not a wise decision to chase a girl for 6 months or 8 months, or, you know, it should be shorter than that.
So, but that's a perfect example of, you know, sometimes compatibility, the way we view it, can get in the way. Now, I do believe that there's a level of compatibility that is necessary as far as sharing the same values, all right?
Yes.
We must share the same values. We must want the same things. That, to me, is a bigger form of compatibility. I think there are some general ones we can use when it comes to compatibility, because I also believe that being compatible should be about bringing balance to each other. All right. I think that some people make the mistake of looking for their match, looking for someone who's like them. And it's like, yeah, but now there's no balance in the relationship. Like, to me, I'm very introverted. So being with another introverted person, I'm not saying that I would completely eliminate that possibility, but to me, it'd be more advantageous to be with someone who's a little more extroverted because it creates a balance in this relationship. A balance when we have other things in place that allow us to respect and value our differences. Because
That's kind of funny because people say the same thing about having a business partner. If anybody's watching this, you probably am knowing what I'm talking about, or you'll find out if you start a business. But I've heard from a lot of people that they regret starting a business with someone who had the same skill sets as them, right? Which is basically kind of like what he's talking about, right? Like they were like almost exactly the same. So they had like a lot in common, right? Like they got along well, all that good stuff. So they thought it was a good idea to start a business together. Although they also missed having a counterpart who had strengths where they were weaker, right? So you fill in the gaps for each other. So that's in a way what he's kind of suggesting about this too in terms of relationships.
If we don't have connection, which we'll get to in a few, we may see these differences as a clash. But when we have the other foundational pieces, we actually value these differences because they bring out different parts of us. And now we can enjoy that.
Oh my God, that's so good. And can I just tell you, so that I don't know if you know, but that was basically the issue with me and my husband. I come from a very traditional Greek Orthodox family, and my husband's a white boy from Tacoma. And so, you know, when my dad met him, was like, well, he like it can't work. Like he was just like, of course it can't work. Like he's not christened. He doesn't understand our religion. He, you know, doesn't come from England or understand, you know, the Cypriot life. And so he eats chicken nuggets and fries. Like while my, you know, we've got these big Greek dishes that are coming out and he wants fries. And so my dad was like, well, it can never work. And at the time I perceived it to be about me. Like I'm incapable of making it work. And what I realized is to your point, is that sometimes actually it was the fact that we were so different that made us so beautifully like combined, because he allowed me and asked me questions that I'd never considered even thinking through. So he would say, well, why do you believe in God? And, you know, why do you want children? I was like, and then he's just like, I watch porn. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Like, you know, he was like, almost like completely going against everything I'd ever thought about what a first date would be, and what I thought was compatible. And I even said I wouldn't have ticked all his boxes. Like a dating app never would have put us together.
Exactly.
They wouldn't have put on us together.
That's what I'm saying. And that's why I say compatibility is a more logical, on paper approach, but it's shaped by people's personal perceptions. Because what one person will say can be compatible, the next person might say differently. You know, and of course these dating apps use all kinds of scientific studies, but still, they're shaping it based off certain references they have, but it doesn't tell the whole story. So chemistry, I would say, is a step up, because now where compatibility is on paper and you can determine if people determine compatibility even just by looking at certain qualities that have been listed. Chemistry requires two people actually mixing together, so to speak. You can't determine chemistry unless you guys actually engage and interact, right? And the thing with chemistry is that it is definitely an important piece of the puzzle. However, we have to understand that one, chemistry is in greater abundance than connection, which we'll talk about. Because think about it, if you are a social person who has a great personality, you can have chemistry with a lot of people. It's not rare to come across a bunch of people you feel chemistry with because you know how to get along. You know how to fit with people. Chemistry is how we flow together, how we're able to engage with each other, all these different things. As well as the fact that chemistry can be created. And I always use the example of sports or corporations. We have team building exercises to build chemistry. We can put together 5 players on a basketball team who've never played together, and in time they can learn to have chemistry. So you can create it and you can destroy it. Because the minute that someone wants to go off that path, chemistry is done. You can have 2 people who get along so well, but if this man or woman changes certain aspects about themselves, that chemistry can go away immediately. Or if they were presenting a false representative of themselves, you built chemistry based on the false representative. Now when the true self comes, chemistry gone. All right? Because again, it's a very...
And that's a really good point there too, right? Like, I mean, I think we've all had moments where, I mean, you get to know someone over a period of time, right? Like, you know, as much as, you know, people probably don't like to say this, like, you know, especially if it's in a dating context, you know, a lot of us are putting our best self forward, right? Like we're presenting in our best way. And especially in the beginning, right? Like, you know, everything seems so like light and fluffy and like, oh, like, you know, it's the honeymoon phase or the cupcake phase, right? Like, you know, it seems like they could do no wrong. Oh, they're so great. The chemistry is so good, blah, blah, blah. But over time, it's, I mean, you know, not to throw a Shrek reference in here, but like, it's like peeling back layers of an onion or layers of a parfait, you know, like donkey or a cake, right? It's like, you know, you're not going to know until some time passes. Like there's certain things that you're just not going to know, even though you think you know them well, right? Like you're going to have to get through some phases of the dating process, get through the honeymoon phase, get through the phase where you define the relationship, like your boyfriend and girlfriend, get through the phase where you're living together, you don't know someone until you live together, right? And onward, right? There's all these different stages where you're not going to really know them until you're in that situation. So, I mean, what he's saying is really important there.
Fluid thing. It can come, it can go, you can get it back, you can lose it, all these things. And so a lot of women, they'll meet a guy. And one example I want to use, because I just come across it a lot and I find it very funny, is when people claim they have sexual chemistry with someone they haven't had sex with. Okay? And
I'm actually trying to process that right now. What does
think
that
about that. Chemistry requires the two to actually engage and mix. How can you claim sexual chemistry without sex? What you're experiencing is attraction and maybe horniness happening all at the same time.
Isn't that just being horny?
Yes, that's what it is. It's like we're both attracted, we're both a little horny, and we're both receptive to it. So this energy that we're feeling right now, we label it chemistry. But there are people who felt that, went into the bedroom, and it was trash, all right? Because it was never chemistry. Okay, so we have this habit of mislabeling things and misinterpreting things and using this whole chemistry as validation for why we should move forward. No, there's more to it than that. So
I think another side point to that, right? It's funny that he said like, oh, like there's all that lead up, and then let's say you had the experience together, right? Some intimacy, and it was trash, right? But at the same time, a lot of people justify staying in relationships that aren't a good fit for them only because the sex is good, right? I mean, let's just be real. Like the chemistry is there in that sense, but the rest of the relationship doesn't really make sense. Like it's not really working, right? And maybe it's something that can be worked through, but I think there's too many people that make concessions, or basically they justify why they should stay with someone, and they think it's love. They think they're perfect for each other. Outside of, they have some arguments here and there, blah, 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 right? Like, and it's all because of the chemistry. Like, they're justifying it because of the chemistry or the sexual connection. And they're like afraid to leave, right? Because like the sexual connection is so good. And really they just have an attachment. It's not love, it's not any of this other stuff. It's just an attachment that they've formed. And it's not actually like a really great connection, essentially.
Again, with chemistry, it's something that is more abundant, and like I said, can be built, can be destroyed, and you need it. You need it. So I don't discredit it as much as I would compatibility, but it's misused in a lot of situations, which now brings us to connection. Connection to me is the biggest piece of the puzzle, and when there is connection, there will be chemistry. All right. Compatibility, there's an argument there because again, what looks good on paper, because look at you and your husband. You guys could have chemistry and connection, but people would say, but you guys weren't compatible. So that doesn't have to be there. But chemistry, you guys, I'm sure, still had the chemistry, had the connection.
And we work on that chemistry even to this day after 22 years later.
But here's the thing. Connection is the glue that holds it all together. So people's ability to work through things are severely hindered when there is not a connection there, all right? There isn't that deeper draw to each other. And what I believe on a spiritual level is your spirit recognizing its match. Because they say spiritually things happen in the spirit realm before they happen in our world, so to speak. So it's almost like the spirit already knows this is who I'm supposed to be with. The spirit already knows this is who I can connect with, or whatever the case may be. We, in our human form, however you want to phrase it, we just have to come to an acceptance of it. You see, people experience connection, but they struggle to accept the connection. Connection is also much more rare. If you were to survey people and ask them how many times have you experienced this deeper connection, at most you might hear it's 2 times. And there's other theories I have as to why it's so rare. One, I think it's just rare because it's not meant for, if we look at it again from a spiritual assignment type of perception, we're not assigned to everybody. We cannot be with just anybody. And some people will think you can just, I'm gonna speak on this real quick from a very Christian perspective, but I know that doesn't apply to everyone. Everyone has different beliefs. But even if you look at it from biblical perspectives, everyone did not come from the same tribe, so to speak. All right. And you were told, you can't be with someone outside the tribe. They will pull you away from God. They will pull you into their gods. All right. So let's just say every tribe has that belief system that, hey, you have to deal with the people within this circle, because outside of that, it will pull you outside and now compromise where you're supposed to be. So no matter how you want to apply that, it just speaks to the fact that you can't just pick and choose who you want and say, we're going to make it work. And even if we take away spirituality for a second, I believe that we're all wired a certain way. Life isn't about making something of yourself or becoming who you want to be. It's discovering who you are and then bringing it to its fullest potential. All right. Like, you ever see, like, there's kids who, I've met so many adults where they're unhappy in their work life. And when you really dig deep into their lives, what they really want to do as an adult was something that they loved as a child.
Yeah.
It was always there. All right. Unfortunately, though, society derails kids. And
Yeah, well, that's a huge point. I mean, like, because basically, if you think about it, this is like kind of a fun thought to have. But if you go out during your day, just realizing that everyone around you is a big kid, right? It might sound funny and you might not believe it, but it's true. I mean, because a lot of people have a suppressed inner child, or maybe they are friends with their inner child, right? But like, when you're tapped into it, you can see those people, right? Because they're more playful, they're more fun, they're doing what they really want to be doing, right? Like they're being successful by being creative with their life. I mean, you can tell like they're just having more fun and they're calm, like at peace and joyful during their day, right? And what he's saying is like super, super important here.
Says, no, you can't do this. This won't make enough money, or this isn't prestigious enough, or this or
Yeah.
that. And so people go in a complete different direction. And then what happens is by the time you become an adult and you can make your own decisions, or you've gone so deep down the path of building whatever life that society, parents, whoever told you to, that now it's too scary to go in the direction that you're really called to go into. And instead you stay where you're at because it's easier. All right. Same thing happens in relationships, I have to mention. Some people have gone so far off the path relationship-wise, maybe in the wrong relationship, that now, even when they come across that person they have a connection with, it's too scary to now go over there. It's too scary to have to uproot your family, maybe if you have kids. And it's understandable, but this is what's happening to so many people. So going back to connection, again, I believe on a deeper level is our spirit. It's who we are assigned to, so to speak. And it's the glue, because whatever that draw is, it gives us that extra motivation, that extra strength to want to work through things. So I look at it like this. Like, one of the things I always say is, going back to sex, the key to great long-lasting sex is connection. All right. There's a lot of people who think, well, no, I have to test drive before I get married or whatever, because I gotta know what I'm getting myself into. And those same people can tell you stories of how the sex was great in the beginning and then it went away. And you ask why? Like, his thing didn't change. It's the same thing it was before, all right? She's not much different than she was before. What has changed here? Well, one of the things that's changed is motivation to please you. Because initially my motivation was to impress you. My motivation was to get you, to lure you in, so I did everything I could to please you. But if at my core, I don't like who you are, I'm not in love with who you are, I'm not gonna be as motivated to keep pouring into you. I believe a lot of people become narcissists in their relationship. They were not narcissistic in the beginning, which is why you didn't see it the way that you see it now, all right? Because sometimes what happens is, if you have, I'll give an example. You have two people that get together. They're not truly in love, but they become attached for various reasons. And initially, because they're trying to make it work and it's fresh, it's new, or they're just happy to have someone, they go all out, right? But again, because there's not a connection, because they're not really in love with each other, at some point, they start to get more lackadaisical. They start to slack off, all right? They're not pouring into you the same way. They're not caring about your feelings the way they should. So now, whoever is getting the short end of the stick, or the shorter end of the stick, it is very possible for them, or it can happen on either side, to now say, okay, I'm gonna look out for me. Now it's all about me, because I'm not getting what I need from my partner, so I'm gonna make this all about me. Entering the narcissism, you see? But it's all stems from, because you guys weren't really into each other, because you guys didn't have the connection, because true love did not exist here. And that's why when people will say, you know, the quote that says love conquers all, and people say, well, love didn't win here. No, love never existed there. You guys were driven by something completely other than love. You just slapped a label on love on it and thought that would make it work.
Again, it's like what I said earlier, right? Like, you've got these justifications for why to try to keep it, but it's just like a sexual attachment, or like an emotional attachment, but it's not actually love, right? It's some other attachment that you're getting from it.
Oh, you weren't being honest with yourselves about, why are you really here? Why are you holding on to this person? Some of you are holding on because you're afraid to be alone, not because you love them. Some of you are holding on.
And that's also worth mentioning, is like, you could have, I know there's different labels, and people will probably come up with more like smaller labels for them now, but like, recognizing your attachment style can be helpful for you too, right? Like based on how you grew up, do you have like a secure attachment style? Do you have an anxious attachment style? Do you have an avoidant attachment style? And what I would recommend is, after this video, you go and look into that kind of stuff, because it's helpful to know. And I think there's probably smaller categories as well. And what I would also say is, I really, really am not into when people feel the need to label everything. Because let's say you are one of those things, right? It's just like taking like the Myers-Briggs or something. It's like, oh, I'm a INTJ, so I'm only this way, right? But you don't realize that you can work on your weaknesses to become stronger there. So you knowing the label for something doesn't justify you not working on it, right? So bring it to this example, the attachment style, right? Anxious attachment style, avoidant attachment style, right? Like maybe you have a fear of abandonment, like some of these things, right? Once you know what that is, if you go look this up after the video and figure out kind of where you're at, because you might just be a secure attachment style, right? Either way, you've always got stuff to work on, right? Like it's not like you can't remove accountability and remove working on yourself, leveling up always, right? I mean, you got to always become 1% better. So if you are an anxious attachment style, have a fear of abandonment or one of these things, right? Like if you figure that out, now you know maybe why some things have been going the way they've been going, and now you have a job to do. You have to work on those things because you can move from one to the other, right? Like you can move out of those things so that you're in secure attachment style and in being a healthier place with all your relationships or current relationship moving forward.
Because your parents pressured you saying, you're getting older, when you're going to have babies, when you're going to get married. And that got in your head. And so you forced the issue with a man that you don't really love like that.
If you want to learn the big, massive...
Awesome, guys. Well, that's actually, so this guy's name is Stefan Labossiere. I think I got the last name right. He's got a lot of really great content on YouTube. We'll probably go over one of his videos eventually. I think you can find him that way or looking up Stefan Speaks or Steph Speaks. And basically, obviously, there's a lot of valuable information in this video, and I hope that you were able to take something away from it that's helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. You got this, bro.